Hi everyone, this is Mr. Lennie from Impact Circle Education, and today we will be continuing our series of lessons on the laws of indices. We have previously learned these 5 laws of indices, and today we will be exploring what it means to have a fraction as a power. For example, what do you think 9 to the power of half is? To figure this out, we will be using the first law of indices to help us understand this better, right? So let's take 9 to the power of half multiplied by itself, 9 to the power of half. According to the first law of indices, two terms with the same base multiplied together will give you just the same base, and you add the powers together, right? So 9 to the power of half multiplied by 9 to the power of half will give you 9 to the power of half plus half, which is 9 to the power of 1. And what is 9 to the power of 1? That just means one copy of 9, which is 9. Okay, so let's think a little bit deeper about this. What we have here is we have two numbers multiplied together to give you 9. Can you think of what this number might be? This mystery number, when multiplied by itself, will give you 9. I think most of you should be able to answer this very quickly. Yes, and indeed it is 3 times 3, which will give you 9. So how is 3 related to 9? Okay, what we can say is that 3 squared is equals to 9, or that the square root of 9 is equals to 3. Right? I'm sure all of you know this. The square root of 9 is 3. Okay? These two are two different ways of saying the same thing. Okay? So this shows us that actually 9 to the power of half is equal to 3, right? Which means that the power of half is the same as taking the square root of that number. Okay, let's explore with another number. How about 16 to the power of half multiplied by 16 to the power of half? Just like before, using the first law of indices, this will give us 16 to the power of 1, which is 16. So this tells us again that 16 to the power of half multiplied by itself will give you 16. And all of you know that the number in a blank is 4, because 4 times 4 gives you 16. Okay. Again, from this we can see that 16 to the power of half is equal to the square root of 16, and that will give us 4. Okay, so you have to remember that the square root of a number is the same as taking that number to the power of half. How about for other fractions? Let's take a look at taking a number to the power of 1 over 3 instead. Right? So let's say we have 8 to the power of 1 over 3. Okay, now instead of multiplying by itself twice, this time we have to multiply 8 to the power of 1/3 by itself a total of 3 times. Yeah? So we need to take 8 to the power of 1/3 times 8 to the power of 1/3 times 8 to the power of 1/3, and this will give us 8 to the power of 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3, right? 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3. And I hope you all know that 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 gives us 1 whole, okay? Which means that 3 copies of 8 to the power of 1/3 multiplied together will give us 8 to the power of 1, which is just 8. Okay? So can you think of a number multiplied by itself, okay, with 3 copies would give you 8? Okay, if you do a little bit of experimentation, it's not difficult to see that the number in the blank is just 2, because 2 times 2 times 2 will give you 8. What does this mean? How is 2 related to 8? I hope it's clear to you that we can see 2 to the power of 3 equals 8. And that means that 2 is also the cube root of 8. These two are two different ways of saying the same thing. All right? Okay, what does this mean? This means that we have 8 to the power of 1/3 is actually equals to the cube root of 8, which is equals to 2. Right? So now you can see that this number in the denominator represents the root. Okay? Which root to take? Right? If the number in the denominator is 2, you're going to take the square root. Right? If the number in the denominator is 3, you're going to take the cube root. How about if the number in the denominator is a 4? You are going to take the fourth root. Okay? Right? How about if the number in the denominator is 5? You are going to take the fifth root. Okay? And so on and so forth. Just remember, when you have a fraction power, the denominator of the power will represent the root. Okay? And the numerator of the power will represent the power. Okay, so what we have figured out is this general law. A to the power of 1 over n is actually equal to the nth root of a. And this is one of the laws of indices, right? Okay. A more general fractional power will be a to the power of m over n, okay, where we have both a numerator as well as a denominator in the power. So for this, just remember the denominator of the power represents the root, and the numerator of the power represents the power. Okay, so let's take a simple example. If we have 4 to the power of 3 over 2, okay, so what we're going to do is that we're going to take the square root of the number, okay, and then after that we're going to cube it, right? We're going to take the square root of the number, and then after that we're going to cube it, okay? So we will take the square root of the number first, and then after that we're going to cube it. Okay, so this gives us the square root of 4 is 2, and then we will cube 2, which will give us 8. All right? Okay, there is another way to do this. You can actually choose to take the cube first, and then after that take the square root. Okay, and you will see that this will give us the same result. So you can actually take the cube of 4, and then after that square root the result. Okay, and what is the cube of 4? 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 times 4 gives us 64. Okay, and the square root of 64 will give us 8, which is the same as before, what we had before. Right? So this shows you that it does not make any difference whether you cube it first or whether you cube root it first, right? Whether you power first, do the power first, or the root first. But what I recommend is, as far as possible, always do the root first. Because when you do the root first, you're actually making the number smaller before you make it bigger, right? Which is actually much easier to handle without a calculator, rather than if you make the number bigger by doing the power first, and then after making the number so big, you don't know how to do the root, right? You can see that this number 64 will be much bigger than this number 2, right? So if wherever possible, do the root first, okay? Okay, let's look at some further examples before we end this video. Okay, so now let's try to figure out what will be the result when you take 8 to the power of 4 over 3. Okay, so we have a fraction as a power, and the numerator of the fraction is 4, which means we have to take the power of 4, and then we have the denominator is a 3, which means we have to take a root of 3, right? So, as mentioned before, if you have a choice, do the root first. So we take the cube root of 8, then after that, we will do the power of 4. Okay, and the cube root of 8, of course, is just 2, and 2 to the power of 4 will give us 16. And you can see that this is actually quite easy to do without having to use a calculator, right? Okay, let's try another example. So what happens when we have 9 to the power of 3 over 2? Okay, so again, the top of the fraction will be the power, and the bottom will be the root. Okay, so 9 to the power of 3 over 2 will be taking the square root of 9, and then you cube it. Okay, the square root of 9, of course, is 3, and the cube of 3 is actually 3 times 3 times 3, yeah? So it's 27, okay? Yeah, many students think that 3 to the power of 3 is 9, okay? But I hope that you are better than this, yeah? Okay, one last example. Okay, so let's take 16 to the power of 3 over 4. Okay, so the power will be 3, and the root will be the fourth root. Okay, so we will take the fourth root of 16 first, and then we will cube the result. Okay, because 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 gives us 16, so the fourth root of 16 will be just 2, right? Okay, and when you cube 2, that just means 2 times 2 times 2, which will give you 8. And therefore, 16 to the power of 3 quarters will be equal to 8. So with that, we've come to the end of this video. Okay, just a summary. You need to remember these new laws, which is a to the power of 1 over n is equal to the nth root of a. And a more general form will be a to the power of m over n will be equal to the nth root of a to the power of m, or it is also equals to the mth power of a to the root of n. Okay? Right? But which one is recommended? This one is recommended. And this one is not recommended. Okay? So with that, till we meet again in the next video. Bye!